Hello, I'm Mark Abssy, Head of Indexing at Tematica Research, and welcome to the week ahead. So as usual, we'll take a peek at what happened last week, abbreviated as it was, and then talk about what is on our radar for this week. Okay, so basically last week, shortened week, Monday trading today essentially kind of picked up from what we saw from last week, which is to say we had another pretty big down day, right? About down 2% across all the major indexes. If we look at the trading kind of last Monday's close through this Monday's close, more of the same. We just talked about it, right? Indices were down. The one thing of slight comfort, I guess, is I know we've been talking a lot about, maybe the last couple of years almost, about concentration risk within the broad indexes. And while we still did see Mag 7 in the top 10 kind of detractors from performance for the S&P 500, at least in the ETF, the amount of contribution for those names is actually continues to be lower than what it has been in the past on the upside, right? On some of the upside days, we've been seeing Mag 7 be north of 100% of the return of the S&P. Over the last week, with SPY down, call it 4.7%, Mag 7 with a couple of other names, including Broadcom and United Health, contribute to maybe 60% of those returns. Still a lot to be looking at, 10 names out of 503 to be driving that much return. But again, there's just a little more participation. So from a market breadth perspective, yes, we're seeing more breadth. Of course, the flip side for that is, but it's all on the downside, right? The advanced decline line for SPY was something like 67 to 436. So, again, not the best of times, but at the same time that we're seeing kind of less concentration, at least is a sign that, nobody's going crazy, just throwing names out. But at the same time, kind of everybody's feeling the pain, right? So that is that. The one asset, of course, that has not been feeling pain, in fact, has been kind of reveling in its moment, if you wish, is, of course, gold, right? And I think today we saw gold close at yet another record high. I mean, 3424. I don't know, these numbers almost seem silly to me, very high, and as I joke sometimes, it just means that gold bugs are going out and digging even deeper holes in their backyard to hide their gold, because it's that much more valuable. Now, one of the things, speaking about gold, as you know, we're, not well into, but we're certainly into Q1 earnings. Newmont, Vale, Agnico Eagle, right? We're going to hear from those names this week. And as usual, it's going to be interesting to see and hear what they say about tariffs. And of course, as all the names that I mentioned here also are gold producers, what their vision is or what their view is for gold going forward. And honestly, how much of a I wouldn't say a hedge, but maybe a balance toward their other tariff-laden, production metals is gold going to be for earnings going forward, and kind of what do these companies see going forward for that? So basically, that's last week. Not a pretty week. This week has started out. Doesn't seem like it's going to be any kind of redemption story either. Okay. When we do look at the week, though, it's relatively light. I'll say relatively because there's not a ton of numbers coming out, but there are some impactful numbers, right? Wednesday, we're getting the market version of PMI, both for manufacturing and for services. Both numbers are expected to be lower. On the manufacturing side, while the last number was kind of skirting on that 50, was 50.2. Expectations are for that manufacturing PMI for market to go down below 50. And of course, any number below 50, you're seeing contraction. Any number above is expansionary. Now, on the services side, like I said, we also are looking for a lower number from services, critically still above 50. So looking for that to go from a 54 to a 52. Thursday, claims, both initial and continuing as usual. Initial claims expected to tick up by 4,000, and then continuing claims expected to drop about 30,000, but let's put that 30,000 in perspective, which is to say going from 1.885 million to 1.856 million. So, still a hefty number, but definitely looking to come in lower. Existing home sales as well, expected lower to about 1.4 million on a seasonally adjusted annualized basis versus the prior 4.2 million. So, again, starting to see some slowdown there. And again, these are seasonally adjusted numbers, so technically seasonality's been taken out of that equation. Friday again, Michigan sentiment. Last print came out at 58. From what I can see, expectations, I guess, are for that same around 58 handle. I know when the last number came out, there was a lot of stories about, we haven't seen that since 22. Still same number, still same kind of lows, right? We haven't seen those in about 3 years, that kind of 58 handle. Again, looking forward to earnings this week. I mean, like I said, we're kind of getting to the meat of earnings season, so we're seeing a lot of different companies going to be reporting, and with those, of course, honestly, it's going to be about what have they seen with tariffs so far, what do they see with tariffs going ahead. Now, the what are we seeing with tariffs going ahead, admittedly, is difficult because honestly, who knows? We talked about earlier, Logitech was a company that declined to give guidance altogether. The other week, United Airlines actually gave kind of a Encyclopedia Brown guidance, right? They said, well, if X happens, then we expect this. If we go into recession, we'll see that. We're going to see some more airlines report this week. We're going to see American Airlines. We're going to see Southwest. So we'll see if they're going to follow on that line of kind of hedging their bets in a sense. And frankly, I think that any company that comes out and says, oh yeah, we see earnings as X for the rest of the year, frankly, just isn't paying attention. There's got to be some ranges, and those ranges are going to be pretty wide. But companies coming up this week, Lockheed Martin, RTX, Boeing, right? We've already seen Boeing in some headlines with China refusing deliveries and parts. The big question is, and in as much as these companies are, quote, excited about Europe rearming, Europe seems to be kind of going with homegrown companies as opposed to, traditional U.S. suppliers. So, again, interested to hear what they've been saying about what they've been seeing this past quarter for their orders, for their pipeline, and of course, again, what they see going forward. I'm assuming that they will get questions about, Europe, where their defense dollars are going, and what the expectation is to see how many of those are going to come offshore to the U.S. The consumer, of course, is always top of mind for us. And so we're going to hear from Kimberly-Clark. We're going to hear from Colgate-Palmolive. PepsiCo is also going to be in the mix. On kind of a consumer finance side, there's a company called Synchrony. If you've ever done a 12 or 24 month payment at your doctor's or dentist, this is a company that does a lot of those types of cards. I wouldn't necessarily call them a true competitor to the name of like Visa or MasterCard, but essentially it's the same business. They seem to be doing it's not really buy now pay later, but it's along those lines. It doesn't really seem as like a traditional kind of like credit line like a Visa or MasterCard or even an Amex would be. So interested again to hear from them as to what they see in consumers, what kind of financing structures are consumers, getting from them. talked about gold. Checkpoint, we will hear from. Of course, it's always good to hear from guys in cyberland and cybersecurity land, what they are seeing, not only from the financials, but also just, what are they seeing in the landscape? Players, attackers, defenders, new vectors that may be coming up, all these kinds of things. Of course, we have Alphabet and IBM, heavyweights in a number of spaces. Of course, in this case, it's going to be mostly about AI, mostly about data centers. And following on that, of course, speaking of data centers and AI and chips, Intel, Lam Research we'll hear from this week as well. And again, tariffs, what's the impact? What have they seen? What do they see going forward? So, again, on the economic data side, not an extremely busy week, but still some important numbers to come out. On the earnings side, we're really starting to ramp up, and we're really going to get a lot of good color this week. So, that's it for now, and thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.